Since the dawn of time, men have considered women to be the weaker sex. I bet back in the caveman era, women had to stay home and watch the cave children, and ironically, not much has changed. In the Middle Ages, women were expected to take care of the family, satisfy their husband, and to never work outside the home. In the 1700s, women were shut out of public debates as if their opinions didn't matter. In the 1800s, married women could not own property and could not keep the money they rightfully earned. Women couldn't have their own money, so they had to turn it over to their husband or father, and women weren't always happy about this. Over time, many have spoken out, but no one was yet to take a stand. 1848 was the beginning of a long-needed women's rights movement that no one seen coming. In 1848, Lucretia Mott and Elizabeth Stanton decided to assemble America's first women's rights convention. At this convention, women protested the lack of legal and political rights for women. This women's suffrage convention was the start of a battle that no one took seriously. Americans were still stuck in their stubborn ways, and at the time, no one supported women's rights. A few years later, the members of the National Women's Suffrage still stayed strong. Lucretia Mott, Elizabeth Stanton, and new member Susan B. Anthony were now fighting for women's rights. One strategy suffragists used to reach their goal was to split into two groups. Group 1's job was to constantly press for a constitutional amendment for women's right to vote. Group 2's job was to try to get individual states to allow women to vote. Group 1's job was a little more difficult because every time they introduced an amendment, it became stalled. As time went on, the National American Women's Suffrage Association was created and Susan B. Anthony became its president. During this time, women gained many rights they didn't have at first. Women could now be married and still own property of their own, and much more. Women never gave up. They just kept on fighting, even when they were punished for it. Susan B. Anthony was arrested for civil disobedience because she insisted on voting in the 1872 election. Alice Paul, the leader of the Congressional Union, was sent to prison and decided to go on hunger strike to protest bad prison conditions. Amelia Walker was arrested for picketing the White House in 1917 along with many other women. All of that suffering for the women's suffrage was finally about to come to an end. The United States decided to enter World War I, and the women around the country stepped up to help their country in their time of need. Women volunteered for Eminem's Corps and took on jobs that men usually would have. During this time of war, debates of women's rights were all forgotten, and in 1919, the battle of the women's suffrage came to an end. Congress finally came up with an equal suffrage amendment, and all the states had to follow. Women finally got what they deserved, and men finally realized that women are a force to be reckoned with.